Hi, Prina. How are you doing?
Manbir, very well, thank you. Really lovely to be talking with you.
Lovely to have you on the show, Growth Mindset Conversations, and it's my pleasure to be with you today. Introducing Prina Shah to my audience today. Prina Shah has over 20 years of experience of in house management roles in the area of organizational leadership development, human resources, cultural change, change management for companies across London and Australia. She's a coach, consultant, and trainer supporting you in finding ways to change the workplace. Prina is joining us from Perth, Western Australia, and she supports clients around the world. Welcome, Prina.
Thank you so much, Manbir. That was a lovely introduction.
Thank you. And we had our first conversation a few weeks back, and I really enjoyed our conversation, Prina.
Same. I was buzzing after our chat, and it
Yeah,
sounds like we've got a lot in common as well, and lots of similar
yes,
passions, Manbir.
yeah. So, to start our conversation in today's show, so it's called Growth Mindset Conversation. So, my first question always is what is growth mindset for Prina Shah?
Yes, so growth mindset for me has been well, it's been a part of my life. I am a lifelong learner, and in terms of me and my own development, whether it be within my career or even personal life, there's always something to learn and always new ways to evolve, whether it be within the workplace, whether it be in my own business as well. There's always opportunity to learn, and keeping our minds open for growth as well, I think, is really important. So I practice what I preach. Like yourself, Monberia, it's all about growth mindset. And yeah, I'm always upskilling in various things. And our last conversation was really to just share knowledge with each other. And that was a growth
Yeah,
mindset conversation of sorts, really itself as well, wasn't it?
yeah. And we both shared the passion for theater and improv.
Yes, yes, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. So growth mindset. The other thing I do,
Yeah,
one scary thing a year is what I try to challenge myself with. And last
yeah.
year in 2020, in relation to growth mindset, my scary challenge for last year was to learn comedy. So I went for something completely different, comedy lessons for 5 weeks, and then in week six. I was live on stage and did my first ever stand up, which was just amazing. Such a brilliant new experience. And learn so much from that as well.
Yeah, that's what it is, right? Exploring new things, new ways to
Yes,
evolve.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So, Prina, continuing from this, you talk a lot about organization culture, and
Yes.
I thought maybe this will be the right topic today to, dig deeper. And with whatever has happened, last year with all of us across the world with COVID-19, so what do you think? What is the impact of COVID-19 on organization cultures? Because this is the right time to take the stock, right? Till I think till last year end, we were all kind of struggling with the changes. But now taking a stock, what do you think? What is the impact?
Yeah, so the impact on organizational culture from a COVID perspective has been humongous, so huge, because of the fact that workplaces have really had to change the way that they work, essentially. So many people were working remotely, working from home, or working in different ways.
Yeah,
Therefore, from an organizational culture perspective, organizations have had to review their culture, even if they didn't know they were doing it, they have done it, and they've had to adapt to suit the new world of working, the new way of working. Now, organizational culture, if I was to define that to yourself, Mambir, in a really simple term, it is our rules of belonging, the way that we work together in this unit. You know,
mm-hmm.
it could be a small business or it could be a multinational global organization. So it can vary, but it's those unsaid rules and expectations, the DNA of the organization that you feel after a few months of working there. And I think that has had a really big impact on so many organizations, thanks to the various changes that had happened and been imposed on everyone of late.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very true. I guess, you're absolutely right. It's rules of belonging, and COVID-19 has changed those rules tremendously,
Humongously.
especially, yeah, with respect to remote working. And I think one thing, which has come very strongly is how adaptive we are actually. We thought we are not that agile.
Yeah.
Organizations were thinking that, but organizations, even human beings, employees have been very agile, and everybody has been adaptive.
Yep. Tell me about it. So massive clap to all of us, everyone in the world for adapting.
Yes.
It has
Yeah.
been hard for some, it
Yeah.
has been easy for others, but my gosh, it has been
Yeah.
the global change. And in
Absolutely.
terms of working remotely as well, we've learned how to communicate with each other in a different manner, use
Hmm.
different mediums to actually get in touch with each other and create new rules of belonging. So there's such an increase now in the way the organizations are using technology to
Yeah.
help build their culture and help maintain their culture as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing you said, organization culture is DNA of the organization. It's rules of belonging,
Yep.
and it's visible, but it's intangible,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So we can see organization culture in every communication, in every email people send, in every customer interaction, everything actually. But still, it's
Yes.
so intangible. It's not like 2 + 2 is equal to 4. It's not like that. So, my question to you is, then how does this visible but intangible organization culture impact on people in a way deeper than it's perceived, the way deeper than we normally discuss?
Interesting question. So your question is, does it impact on people in an intangible way, deeper than we expect?
Yeah,
Or
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Deeper
well,
than we
definitely.
perceive, basically. So yeah,
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. Well, if we look at the various, I can talk to Perth at the moment. We've gone into lockdown again, and now we are on bushfire alert. So, recent example I can talk to. So, right now, even I just told Manbir before we started, my bags are packed and I'm ready to go if, we're evacuated. So, we're all on fire alert. So, when these kind of big changes happen, which are not just
hmm,
for me as an individual, but for society, we have a tendency to respond emotionally. So, in that emotional intelligence aspect as well, Manbir, it
hmm,
really has heightened the impact of the communications, the way messaging is shared now with
hmm,
organizations, how rapidly people respond to things as well within organizations. And
hmm,
me as an
hmm.
employee, I have no control over things. It often feels like,
Yeah,
when
yeah,
these big changes happen. So the importance and the role of the leader is even more heightened now to give that stability, even if you have no idea of what you're doing.
hmm,
It's that giving people peace of mind and giving them some form of control when
hmm,
control is really lacking. So the need for emotional intelligence of our leaders and people managers has just gone through the roof. I
yeah,
think that has really increased and changed.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. And
Hmm.
when the all this is changing and it has a deeper impact. And what do you think? What are a few signs, when leaders should really get alert on the organization culture side? Yeah, this is the time we should, kind of do something about it.
Yep. Yep. Okay, that's an interesting one. So there's two aspects. For leaders, if you're unsure as to how you are doing with your team, and especially if you're managing remotely, and if you've got large teams or large areas to look after, and you're still unsure, talk to your peers, talk to your colleagues to see how they're managing it. I think one thing at the moment sometimes that's happening, Manbir, is we go into our little silos, we go into our little pockets.
Hmm.
No, I think we need to expand that and use our network. So, one organization, for example, that I've been helping with Manbir through group coaching is they'll have their leadership development modules, they'll learn beautiful theories. Yeah. And then I will go in to enhance their learning with group coaching. There, we will actually apply whatever learning that they've had. So let's talk about communication. There's one communication model which is called discuss the situation, discuss the behavior, and discuss the impact. Yeah, you've learned
Hmm.
that theory, but then how do you put it into practice? If you've
Hmm.
got your network, if you've got your colleagues, if you've got, people that you trust to try and apply those skills that you've learned or that you need to refresh, and then go and apply them to your team, even better, especially if you're a bit rusty. And, some managers have been rusty because of the fact that we've had it so good and that we have been able so far generally to work together until recently. So that shift is massive with people. And the online management of people and online management of culture as well, like you said, is so intangible. But Manbir, the way you talk to me or the way you communicate with me may really impact me because there's so much else happening in the world. So the importance of that is even more heightened, I feel. Definitely
Yeah,
so.
yeah, yeah. So when you're saying communication, what and I always call it human to human connect. So that's importance
Exactly.
of that is really really heightened.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
required
And it's
more
that
than ever.
yeah, it's that human connection. I think we've really
Yeah.
gone down to it is a change from that command and control kind of leadership
Hmm.
to relational leadership now, really. And it's
Hmm.
beyond I say you do to checking in on people and actually having
Hmm.
that humanity aspect of it within the leadership aspect and
Yeah.
bringing that more to the fore. And I've seen, therefore, now this year, especially Mumbai, the organizations that have focused on that and the people managers who will focus, on their own growth in relation to becoming a better people manager in relation to their emotional intelligence and connecting with their people, doing
Hmm.
well.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful to see. There are some managers struggling as well because uh,
Hmm.
you have to choose the right medium to communicate and, the right forum, the right time as well. And
Yeah.
some managers are struggling that way, I've
Yeah.
noticed.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no single short answers to it. Yeah. You have to evolve. You have to learn. That's your journey in your
It's,
organization, in your culture.
yeah, yeah, to suit your organizational culture completely. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I
Yeah.
mean, if I consolidate what you said, so a few signs when leaders should get alert on the culture side is basically when they observe silos,
Yep.
they observe people are not managing in the right way, when they observe there is no connection and communication is not great, right? These are the
Yeah.
things, which has come out from this particular
Absolutely.
segment. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, what else? One thing I think, which is which also tells about the culture is how keen people are on learning, how keen
Yes.
people are on their own development. Because many times I feel that people are dependent on organizations' learning and development unit for their
Yeah.
own learning, so they are not taking ownership. So I guess that is also one part of one indication of not so great culture.
Absolutely. And then another indication also, Manbir, you reminded me, is in every organization there's naysayers. There's people who disagree with anything and everything.
Yeah,
When those people turn silent, that's a concern.
yeah,
So that's
yeah,
another alert I think that people should
yeah,
be aware of. And as a
yeah,
people manager, I've managed teams before, and those naysayers, they're challenging, they're tough, but
yeah.
they bring a good diversity of thought to the conversation. And when that diversity of thought, or when that pushing and challenging the boundary stops, you need to address it. Something's changed, something's wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I have been into one of those teams, you remind me that. And, when you are declaring something to the team or when you're going for a discussion, you are also worried about this naysayer and you're prepared well because
Yeah,
they are going to ask you questions and they are going to challenge you. I guess,
correct.
it's important to have these people in the team. Very
Oh,
important, actually.
absolutely. And I really used to use my team that way as well. So when I was managing people, when I was working in corporate Mumbai, I used to have sessions. So looking at our organizational culture, just from a team culture perspective, I used
Mm-hmm.
to have post-mortem sessions, I call them. So, after we've delivered a massive program or a massive project, let's all get into a room. Let's talk about the benefits. Let's celebrate our successes, but then let's
Mm,
just rip everything else apart that didn't work. And no
yeah.
egos, no, sensitivities or anything. Let's just be honest with each other, because everyone has such a beautiful different perspective that you wouldn't have considered it yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're saying that, I think honesty is one great part of a good culture. And,
Yeah.
that's difficult to reach also.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think other, I would be keen to listen to your opinion on it. I think how do you celebrate success and how do you acknowledge failures? That is also one of the very important traits of organization culture that tells that what kind of culture organization have.
Exactly. Yes. So I very much celebrating success. You can do it in the formal way of, staff awards, that kind of stuff that align to your values and whatever else. That's the
Mm-hmm.
formal way. But then individuals themselves can thank each other. A thank you goes so far. It makes someone's day. And then as people managers, as people leaders, how can you tap into the needs of your team? So whether it be their development needs, whether it be just half an hour with you just to talk through something, or for yourself as a people manager, even just to say thank you for doing a great job, because I know times are tough at the moment, that just goes so far. So that's celebrating the success. But
Yeah.
then when things go wrong, and there are failures, there's going to be failures throughout the test of time. Addressing them now, also, if we're doing it remotely, you have to have that relationship and you need to be able to have that conversation as well directly. So it's choosing the right forum, the right time again, and then the right content, because you may not be, well, you're very unlikely to be face to face, I imagine now. So, how are you going to do it? One way I highly recommend managers is to think about it and potentially script it for yourself before, especially if it's more of a difficult conversation, and
Mm.
script it in relation of opening it, giving context as to what happened, why whatever the issue was an issue, and asking the individual then. So it's a two-way process. Asking the individual for feedback as to how they think it could have been enhanced or what could they have done differently, rather than managers telling, it's involving the other individual in that conversation process, because
Mm.
otherwise it just feels like, oh, my manager's calling me on Zoom and I'm getting a telling off, and then just that feeling is horrible. And then
Absolutely.
to close that conversation as well, managers, so many people find it really difficult to close a conversation. So another tip I give is, when you give those kind of difficult conversations or difficult feedback, is close the conversation with the support that you're going to give, the expectations that you have,
Mm.
and then the next steps,
Mm.
so that if you're having a conversation with me, I have a little bit of satisfaction as to,
Yeah.
okay, this is what's expected of me. These are the next steps. And I'm going to be talking to Manbir in next week. So great. I know what to expect. A lot of managers leave that last part and then it's just uncomfortable.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, I guess, why people leave that last part and, because they do the necessary thing and it's like, what's in for me after that? I have
Yeah.
given the message. So I guess,
Tick. Yeah.
exactly, I have done it and, meeting is over and what's in for me? And I believe everybody has to be accountable for the culture. All these small interactions which leave everybody with an emotion have a
Yes.
deeper impact on culture.
Exactly. And also remembering the fact now that emotions are heightened because of everything else that's happening. So,
Absolutely.
what, even if you were my manager, you and I had a wonderful
Mm,
relationship, even if you were to speak to me like the way you spoke to me when we were in the office, that may not land. So it's just being
mm.
sensitive to the needs of others a little bit more so now.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool. It's an interesting conversation, Preena.
Always fun talking with you.
Same here. So, going towards the last segment of this conversation. So we discussed about, it has a very deep impact, and what are the signs, when leaders or organizations should see that warning signs of not so good culture. So my question to you is, what can people do to change something to kind of
Mm,
move the thread there about organization culture? And I'm not talking about only executive teams here. I'm not
good.
talking about only HR teams here. I'm saying everybody who's listening to this show, how can
Yes.
they feel more accountable and what can they do about organization culture?
This is huge, Manbir, because often employees or people feel like, the exec own the culture or
Mm,
the HR team owns the culture. I call BS to that. Every single one of us, that works within a workplace has ownership of the culture. And I
yeah.
talk about it in two ways. You have control. Sometimes you have little control over things, but you have so much more influence over things. So if you have, let's say, from a cultural perspective, an issue about whatever, address what that issue is first off. Like, what is the gap? Do a bit of a gap analysis for yourself. So then you've got the solution as well. And then address it from that perspective. And how can you influence your team, your business unit, your general manager? You're going up the chain then. And then you can talk to people and bigger powers that be. So it can start with just one small step for yourself. So when I used to manage a team, let's give an example of myself, Manbir, if you want. I always am really focused on growth mindsets. So one thing I had for my team, Friday, you want to celebrate a bit and you want to
Yeah.
have some fun. And I wanted my team to always learn and share learnings with me as well. So we just had a Friday fun day. Let's share learnings with each other. And then we'd spend half an hour to go and book a room, or now join virtually half an hour. What wonderful thing can we learn? What wonderful podcast or YouTube interview can we listen to? So a bit of time together as a team that way is the way I created it,
Mm-hmm.
because I noticed in people and culture in my field you really need to keep up to date. And if we
Hmm.
don't keep up to date, we're just going to get stagnant and stagnant. So that was an area that I addressed,
Yeah.
and I did it by including the rest of the team rather than me
Yeah.
mandating, here's things we need to learn. It's like, no, guys, what do we all need to learn? And different
Hmm.
people contributed, and we just had the best time together. And it's just half an hour, and it's together time while we're still learning. Now,
Hmm.
after that learning as well is, what have you learned? What are the key takeaways? How are we going to implement it? Those
Yeah.
kind of conversations.
Yeah.
So people could listen to this conversation of yours, Mambir. Take half an hour out, listen, what are you going to pick
Hmm.
up and what are you going to do differently?
Yeah. And that could be the first step.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
change starts with you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. And I think, I loved what you said. Every conversation you have in the day, every interaction you have in the day is creating the culture. So that's
Yeah,
how, I
completely.
encourage people that even if you have an issue, how do you solve that issue? How do you talk
Yes,
about that issue is basically creating the culture with the organization, co-creating the culture with the organization.
absolutely.
So being mindful of that, you are not controlled by the culture. Of course, to some extent you are, but
Yeah,
as you said, you have influence upon whatever you can do.
100%. Exactly. Yes,
Yeah,
and everyone owns a culture, not just, the people in
exactly.
the job.
Absolutely,
Everyone.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I hope we were able to encourage people to be accountable for their own organization cultures, micro
Oh,
cultures.
definitely so. So that's the other thing I love talking about. So, an organization will have their umbrella culture, but then you can create your own micro culture as well.
Yeah,
And no
yeah,
doubt you've seen this in workplaces, Mambir, whereby, oh my gosh, that team is amazing. I want to go and work for
absolutely.
them. I want to
Yeah.
go and work for that manager. Usually, when you look at it, it's not just the manager that has created it, it's the
Hmm.
team. So I think
Hmm.
role modeling and looking at what's working within your organization and tapping into those areas and seeing what you can do and learning from the
Hmm.
best as well. How great would
Yeah,
that be?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool. This is wonderful conversation. I'm loving it, Preena. Thank you so much. It was so lovely to host you today, and I'm
Thank you.
sure it has added a lot of value to my audience and of course to myself also.
Thank you very much for your time, Ambir.
Okay. So to everyone, I hope you learn new ways to evolve and you learn new ways to have growth mindset and have those conversations which is definitely going to empower your microcultures of the team and culture of the organization. Okay, thank you so much, Preena. It was lovely to have you. It was wonderful discussing all this with you. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, Ambir.
And thank you everyone for watching this video. See you all again in the next video in this series, Growth Mindset Conversations. And do subscribe to this channel to watch more videos here to help you succeed in your journey. Thank you and all the very best.